Welcome to the Diction Police. In this episode, François Germain reads the text to Après, rêve, and in our discussion, we focus on what happens to nasal vowels in Liaison, the differences between the A nasal and the O nasal, as well as open and closed vowels in French. There are two versions of episode 92, the full video tutorial or the audio version for people who prefer to listen to podcasts while they're out and about. Don't forget that all of the podcast episodes, diction lessons, diction tips, and the Tongue Twisters for Singers series are also available at the website under the category Freebies Blog. You can also find our tongue exercises video there, with lots of great exercises to strengthen all of the different layers of the tongue. For more information about today's contributor, François Germain, or for the accompanying PDF of this text, which includes an IPA transcription along with the poetic and word-for-word translations, please visit dictionpolice.com. You can also follow the Diction Police on Facebook or Twitter at Diction Police. The text to Après un rêve originally comes from an anonymous Italian poet whose text was translated into French by Romain Bussin, and the original Italian was also published in the first editions of this song, as it too fit the music. Après un rêve has been arranged for many different instrumental combinations, most notably as a cello solo.
Après un rêve. Dans un sommeil que charmait ton image, je rêvais le bonheur, ardent mirage. Tes yeux étaient plus doux, ta voix pure et sonore, tu rayonnais comme un ciel éclairé par l'aurore. Tu m'appelais et je quittais la terre, pour m'enfuir avec toi vers la lumière. Les cieux pour nous entr'ouvraient leurs nus, splendeurs inconnues, lueurs divines entrevues. Hélas, hélas, triste réveil des songes, je t'appelle, ô nuit, rends-moi tes mensonges. Reviens, reviens radieuse, reviens, ô nuit mystérieuse.
Let's start off talking about the liaison, because in the first verse we have a whole lot of liaisons because they're very grammatically linked together, these phrases.
Yes, so dans un, preposition in its article, no problem there.
Exactly.
Ton image, an article in its noun.
And actually, while we're there, when we make a liaison after a nasal vowel, it maintains its nasal quality.
Yes, you say ton, the real nasal vowel, and then you just add the N. Ton image. So this is the only case where you should have an N after a nasal vowel.
Exactly.
In the spoken language, sometimes you will hear people denasalize that vowel in a case of a liaison, but this is not proper lyric diction. It's not ton image, it's ton image.
Okay, and now, just to be devil's advocate, in the second line, this is not a liaison, but we have the word for happiness.
Bonheur.
And there, rather than it being a bon,
right,
as a B-O-N would be, an O nasal, a closed O, we actually open this vowel. This word itself is an exception, right?
Yes, you can consider it an exception if you consider that the word is formed from bon and but in this case it just became one thing and it lost the nasality, so the word is really bonheur, so it is an exception to that rule.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
I
and
never
point
thought of
that
that
out.
like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So in the third line, back to our liaisons, we have...
Now, tes yeux, an article in its noun, plural, and then tes yeux étaient, the plural noun with its verb. All these are clear cases of liaison. It cannot be tes yeux in no circumstance.
Exactly. But in the second stanza of this text, we have several places where we do not make the liaison, and that's also for grammatical reasons.
Yes, so tu m'appelais et je quittais la terre, instead of tu m'appelais et je quittais la terre. The two clauses are not grammatically connected, so we don't connect the verb to the et. They're two different thoughts, two different ideas, and the grammatical link between appeler and et is not strong enough to justify the liaison there.
Yeah, so it's basically you did this and I did this, but
Yes.
not you did this while I was doing
Exactly. And then les cieux pour nous entr'ouvraient leurs nus. Again, nous and entr'ouvraient are not the two words that are connected together. Les cieux and entr'ouvrer work together.
Exactly.
And pour nous is just the object of this whole verb-subject group. So nous entr'ouvrer doesn't work. If nous were the subject of the verb entr'ouvrer, nous entr'ouvrons, for instance, then you would do the liaison. But in this case, it is not, so you don't do it.
Yeah. And this entr'ouvrer, that's an actual verb that gets conjugated exactly like everything else, even with this apostrophe?
Yes, don't get flustered by the apostrophe. It's just pretend it's not there. It's just because the word was formed with two other words. The word entre, which is between, and has a final E at the end of it, and the word ouvrir for open. And then instead of saying entre-ouvrir, which is a little bit too many vowels in a row, it became, over time and with usage, it became entrouvrir.
And then they just put the apostrophe in somewhere along.
Just to signal
exactly
that there used to be something there.
As part of the orthography of the language.
Exactly.
But in the last line of this, again, we come back to liaison.
Yes, now splendeurs inconnues is a straightforward liaison between the plural noun and its adjective.
And this is actually one to watch for because, again, this does not fall into our RS, RD, and RT rule where we would do the liaison with the R.
Exactly, this is not a liaison to the R because it's a word in the plural. And divines entrevues, same thing, an adjective in the plural followed by the noun that goes with it. So they're both plural words and strongly rated grammatically.
Another thing that pops up in this song quite a bit are double consonants. And I just want to brush up the concept of double consonants in French because we don't actually double them in the same way that we do in Italian and German, right?
No, not at all. There is no difference between the way you pronounce a single consonant or a double consonant in French. You pronounce the double consonant the same way you pronounce a single consonant. So the third word of the piece is sommeil.
So it's not sommeil.
It's not sommeil. What it does, however, is it might affect the vowels that come before.
So the quality of the vowel might be affected.
So for vowels that have both a closed and an open version, it will tend to open that vowel. So we will not say sommeil, we'll say sommeil. Similarly, we won't say comme, but comme.
Which is actually also something to remember because in Italian, come is a closed O.
Right, and in French it's an open O.
Exactly.
A good example of that rule is the word rayonner, which comes from the word rayon. When you only have rayon, that O is a closed nasal O.
Right.
But when you add the extra N and then AIS to conjugate, that closed O becomes open. Rayonner.
And if there isn't a closed and open version of the vowel, then it doesn't affect the pronunciation at all.
It doesn't change the vowel at all. So m'appelait, quittait retain their quality.
Yeah. When it comes to the last verse, we have a couple of exceptional things. First of all, the word for alas in French.
Hélas.
So there we have to say the S.
Yes.
Just that word.
The S is pronounced. Hélas, hélas, triste réveil des songes.
As we keep working through it, as we get to the end, the one thing we also talk about in French a lot is glides and these semi-consonant, semi-vowels, however you want to call them, like the J glide.
Yes. Which
tends to happen a lot at the ends of syllables, and it looks like it should happen. Well, it does happen in revient.
Yes, revient, we have V-I-E-N-S, and phonetically this is V, J glide, open N nasal, revient. So that I is not an E phonetically anymore, it's a J glide phonetically. However, right after revient we have the word radieuse. Normally that word is also a J glide, radieuse, not radieuse. However, if you look at the music, forêt actually separates the two sounds. And this is a poetic process that in French we call it diérèse. The diérèse is the act of separating a diphthong or a glide and its vowel into two vowels.
To make it two separate syllables, basically.
Yes, you make, out of one syllable, you make two syllables. So instead of radieuse, we have radieuse. And same thing at the last word of the piece, instead of mystérieuse, we have mystérieuse. So IE becomes two vowels.
Yeah.
And this is a way of emphasizing the word and making it more expressive.
It can also happen if a poet is trying to get a certain number of syllables, a certain number of feet into the poem.
Yes, also.
Another thing that happens a lot in French are these vowels that come together, and we get the combination of EU all over the place in French.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've already talked about bonheur and yeux, cieux.
Yes, EU can be three things. It can be OE phonetically, O/phonetically, or Y, lowercase y phonetically.
Although it's very seldom that it's lowercase y, right?
It's not as common, but you have to know that it's a possibility because it does happen in a very common verb, the verb to have.
Mm-hmm.
And the past participle of to have is eu, EU.
Okay.
J'ai eu. In this piece, we have mostly open OE and O/, like in bonheur, that's an open OE. Yeux is O/, cieux, O/.
And then we're going to get to the reason that I wanted to talk about this, because in this piece we also get UE. We get not only EU, we get UE, and we get that the next example of that is
leur nu. Now, when you have UE instead of EU, it does not work as a combination of vowels anymore. It really just works as a vowel followed by a mark of the feminine. In this case, nu, the word is actually nu. You can, and a composer or a poet can decide that silent schwa will be pronounced, and then it becomes nu, but it becomes another syllable.
Okay.
It doesn't combine to create another sound.
Yeah, so we get basically the lowercase y and then a schwa.
And then a schwa, exactly. Same thing with inconnu.
Yeah.
We get the U and then the schwa at the end. Just a little side note here to remember that whenever you have this final schwa, it should always be a weaker syllable and a weaker vowel. Don't accent that schwa. Nu.
Yeah.
Nu is correct.
It falls away.
It's almost like a release of the vowel.
And just to confuse us even further, we get the word
lueur,
which is at the end of the second stanza. And in this one we have U and then EU, and it functions that way, right? It functions as U and then EU is its own syllable.
That's exactly right. First you look at the LU combination, which is lu, and then the EU that we talked about already, and that's an OE sound, and the whole thing becomes lueur.
Which is two mixed vowels in a row.
Two mixed vowels in a row. Now, if we just want to review our mixed vowels quickly, we have three in French. The OE, the O/, and the lowercase y. OE and O/ are related. They're both each other's closed and open versions. And the U is a little bit on its own.
But just to compare this for a second with German, we don't have an open capital Y, right?
No, we don't have capital Y. We just have a lowercase y. It's always a long U, and it's always a closed vowel.
There is also no open capital I.
Yes, similarly, the I letter in French, or the I phonetically, is always lowercase, and it's always a very closed E sound.
And the same thing with the U, then that it'll be also a very closed sound.
Yes, and because the U is a combination of an E sound with lips of U, that makes that U a very closed and focused vowel as well.
Yeah. And again, with the O/ then, since the O in French is just as closed as in German, and the A is also just as closed as in German, will the O/ then be a very
similarly,
closed sound?
Absolutely. A, very closed, O, very closed, so therefore the combination of an inside of A with lips of O is also a very focused closed vowel. Ö is really forward.
Yeah.
And there has to be a clear difference between Ö and between the OE and the O/.
So for example?
So radieuse and mystérieuse. Mystérieuse is a word that has a lot of really closed vowels, and they all have to be very close.
Exactly. And for the open version?
We have a word like splendeur, where the OE is really open.
One other word just to point out, we have an A nasal and an O nasal right back to back in the third stanza at the end of the second line.
Yeah, the word is mensonge, or lies. This is a case where you really have to be clear on your nasal vowels and make sure that the A nasal is really a dark A and the O nasal is really a closed O. So mensonge. If you're a little bit in between, mensonge, which we hear, then you don't understand the word.
No, it tends to sound like massage.
Right.
To me. In talking about double consonants sometimes opening vowels, François mentioned that some vowels do not have an open or a different counterpart. So I just wanted to elaborate a little on vowel pairing in French. Just starting with the normal A, E, I, O, U order, the first vowel we have is the phonetic A. This is usually a bright A, which looks like a scripted A, but can also be a dark A, which in phonetics looks like a normal hand-printed A. Bright or dark, however, is not open or closed, so A does not have an open counterpart. The letter E does have both an open and a closed version. Here the closed version looks like a printed lowercase e and sounds like E, and the open version looks like the Greek epsilon, e. I've worked with some singers who understand this concept backwards, misunderstanding which one needs to be open or closed. When we say open as coaches, we're referring to the space in the back of the mouth. That is, where the tongue is in relationship to the soft palate. So an open e has more space in the back of the mouth than the closed e. It has nothing to do with the shape of the lips or how wide the front of the mouth gets. The letter I, which sounds like E and is transcribed as the lowercase I, has no open counterpart in French. So although the word in English is quit with an open capital I, in French we have quitter, which remains a closed lowercase I in spite of the double T following it. O's can be both open or closed. The closed version looks just like an O, while the open IPA symbol is a backward C to represent not closing an O. In French, the difference between an open and a closed O is extreme, as we can see by comparing the phrase aux nuits with the words sommeil and bonheur. But not all open O's are created equal. In the words sonore and aurore, we have two back-to-back open O's with a stress on the second one. The thing to remember is that an unstressed vowel will have a slightly different quality than the stressed one. So in this case, you can almost think of the first syllable of these words as being somewhere between an open and closed O sound. The letter U, when it stands alone in French, has no open version. We talked about this as being phonetically transcribed as the lowercase y in regards to it being one of the three mixed vowels in French. And we see it in this text in the words plus, pur, nu, inconnu, and entrevu. This very closed mixed vowel can also be used as a glide. Then it's represented by an upside-down lowercase h. And this is one of the tougher sounds for foreigners to imitate. In words like m'enfuir and nuit, it's very important to form this glide from that lowercase y sound. Otherwise, it just becomes the W glide, nuit, which also exists in French. The only way to spell a pure oo sound, that is the phonetic lowercase u, is the digraph OU, which again has no open counterpart. The only other open and closed team we have to worry about are the mixed vowels OE and O/, which we discussed in the interview. In French orthography, these vowels are generally spelled with an EU combination, as we said earlier.
Dans un sommeil que charmait ton image, je rêvais le bonheur ardent mirage. Tes yeux étaient plus doux, ta voix pure et sonore. Tu rayonnais comme un ciel éclairé par l'aurore. Tu m'appelais et je quittais la terre pour m'enfuir avec toi vers la lumière. Les cieux pour nous entr'ouvraient leurs nues. splendeurs inconnues, lueurs divines entrevues. Hélas, hélas, triste réveil des songes, je t'appelle, ô nuit, rends-moi tes mensonges. Reviens, reviens, radieuse, reviens, ô nuit mystérieuse.
This interview with François Germain was conducted by Ellen Rissinger. Translation and phonetic guide by François Germain. This has been the Diction Police Special Diction Unit, a production of Singing Diction GbR.